Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day or night it is, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. I'm glad you joined me. I'm here in my office, and I want you to get a printout of the documented essay example provided in Module 8, that documented essay entitled John Henry Bird, The Making of a Poet Down on the Farm. If you don't have that before you right now, hit the pause button, run get it, and I'll wait right here for you. Okay, you've got the paper now. Let me say the first word about this paper. John Henry Bird is not a literary figure that I know anything about. I don't think to my knowledge, there never was a John Henry Bird who wrote poems on a dairy farm in Folsom, Louisiana during the 1950s and 60s. I made this character up. I made this entire paper up, in fact. And you're going to actually find some of it, some of the parts of it a little humorous and comical. And if you laugh at it, I'll actually take that as a compliment because I meant for some of the content to be amusing and entertaining. But what I do want you to take seriously is the style, the organization, and especially the mechanics of documentation and citation. You can see illustrated in this paper everything from the proper MLA manuscript form, and I'll be referencing, look what I wrote, Form 8, references to the MLA section of the style manual that you'll be referring to make sure you get the mechanics right. This paper illustrates the mechanics of in-text citation, including the use of signal phrases and parenthetical references. I'll be referencing those techniques also as they're covered in the pocket style manual. And this paper also shows the appropriate example of end-of-text citation, that being the works cited page at the end. All right, let's look at the MLA manuscript form first of all. You're going to look in the upper right-hand corner, and the first thing you notice is the last name page number. That's the page heading that you've consistently used, probably since you were in English 1001, depending on what teacher you had and where you took the course. But this MLA format is probably familiar to most of you. Double space and back to the left margin, you see the 4-part header with the student name, name and section number of the course, instructor's name, and the date the assignment is due. Then double space to the title where it's centered, and then double space and indent the first paragraph of the body. And that first paragraph of the body is the introduction. I want you to notice how this introduction reveals the thesis at the end. I want you to notice also how this introduction focuses biocritically on a specific time in John Henry Bird's life. One of the big mistakes students make, or one of the first mistakes students make on this assignment, their biographical focus is too broad. You're not writing a birth to death report on the writer's life. You've identified a specific time in the writer's life that was influential in something that the author wrote, or maybe some examples of things the author wrote, and that's the period that you're concentrating on. If you look in the middle of that paragraph, the most productive years in his writing occurred between 1954 and 1962 when he moved to Folsom, Louisiana. Right there is the limitation of the biographical section of this paper. It's not going to mention very little about any other time of John Henry Bird's life. The next sentence after that, or the next three sentences actually, work together to express the thesis. Working the farm gave Bird inspiration for many of his best-known poems. The next sentence specifies the 3 poems that the paper will identify or will analyze as being representative of this period in his career. 3 of his best-known poems from that productive and critically recognized period include Old Daisy Needs a Milkin', Ode to a Cow Patty, and Sweet Milk, Sour Milk. So notice how the introduction ends with the thesis. Notice how the thesis statement might take 2 or 3 sentences to completely unfold. And it's always a good idea for the last statement of the sentence to very specifically name or identify the representative work or works that the paper will analyze to develop the thesis. All right, that covers the introduction, the statement of the thesis, and also the MLA manuscript form. I'm not going to read the entire paper to you, so you can relax if you thought that was coming. I do want you to look at the first body paragraph because it's going to be an example of the in-text citation. That's in-text, in the text citation of your sources. Your Pocket Style Manual explains the process of in-text citation, where the first thing you do when you introduce a source is to give the critic's full name the first time you use it, and also to establish the authority of the source that you're citing by giving some information about the source's work or credibility to have an opinion on the subject that is being cited. So look at the first sentence of the first body paragraph, which contains an example of a signal phrase, a phrase that signals or introduces a citation. Read the first sentence with me. Poetry Web contributor Jerry V. Wayne explains what caused Byrd to make the move from New Orleans to Folsom in 1954. Byrd was 27 years old and working as a streetcar conductor in the city. His father's brother, George Henry Byrd, moved across Lake Pontchartrain in the 1920s and started a farm where he raised watermelon and cantaloupe along with the dairy enterprise. Wayne notes that when John Henry was a child, he would spend happy weekends on his uncle's farm and even stay for longer times during the summer. According to Wayne, and here's a quotation, summer visits of 2 or 3 weeks at a time were common, end of the quote, as the young Byrd loved the country life and the industry of farm life during that peak time of the year when not only cow milking was going on, but also the watermelon and cantaloupe harvest. And then the paraphrase and summarized content of that first paragraph is ended with what we call a parenthetical reference. And I'll be pointing out in the Pocket Style Manual where these explanations and illustrations of signal phrases and parenthetical references occur. You'll notice in that paragraph, the entire paragraph, that was paraphrased partly with one direct quotation included. Occasionally you have to sneak the critic's name in there to make sure that your reader understands that this long paragraph is continuing to cite the source from the Poetry Web article written by Jerry Wayne. The parenthetical reference at the end, that is the reference in parentheses, will give the page number if the source that's being cited is a paginated source. If it's a website which usually are not paginated, then you're going to put the title of the article or some key or clue that keys to the works cited entry for that source that identifies it rather than the page number. All right, speaking of works cited, there's Jerry V. Wayne as the source. Let me scroll forward to the works cited page. You look on page 6 at the works cited. Look for Wayne Jerry V. Aha, you see that? That's the last one at the bottom of the works cited list. And there's the complete citation of the source that I just cited in the first paragraph of the body of the essay. And that citation follows, of course, the MLA style. And I'll give you a separate lesson on works cited formats later on. What I want you to see right now is to go back to the body of the paper. Let's start on page 2 now. The next paragraph on page 2 in the body, you see, according to Wayne, aha, we're continuing to cite this source, this article written by Jerry Wayne. Notice what happens the second time you use the source. You don't have to give his entire name. You can just use his last name and follow that pattern consistently throughout the paper. Notice also the parenthetical reference at the end. You're going to see another critic introduced in the second paragraph on page 2. Look there where you'll see the sentence that begins with a signal phrase. Critic and poetry reviewer Louise D. Mason. Notice the introduction, the signal phrase introduces the author by the full name and also establishes the source's credibility by identifying Louise D. Mason as a critic and poetry reviewer. In other words, somebody that has credentials to be commenting on poetry. Anyway, Mason believes the factor that made the difference between the undistinguished poems Byrd wrote in the city and the creative energy shown in the country poems was the natural and stimulating environment of the farm. Mason explains how the country life awakened the poet's creative instincts. What you see following that is a block indentation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. The rule for MLA format, if the quotation is longer than 4 lines or longer, then you block or dent using this format as an example. And notice the parenthetical reference at the end of the quoted passage, 134. That means on page 134 in the book that Mason wrote, this quotation would be found. Let's see what Mason looks like on the works cited page. Turn again to page 6. Look in alphabetical order. Mason, Louise D. There you see it. John Henry Byrd's Agrarian Poems is the title of an article which is in a collection of essays, a book collection entitled Critical Essays on 20th Century Poetry of the American Deep South. And notice that works cited format also follows the format of the MLA works cited, the guidelines for the MLA citations. Okay, you're going to find examples of all of these different kinds of quotations throughout the paper. I'm not going to read the whole paper to you, like I said. I think those first two or three kind of show you the basics of it. You read the rest of the paper and notice how the sources that are cited in the paper are introduced with signal phrases, and parenthetical references come at the end of all the citations. That's what your work should show also. Also, remember this: every source that you cite in your paper should be listed on the works cited page in alphabetical order. Look again at the works cited page, page 6. You'll notice the alphabetical order of the works. You'll notice the three sources by Bird. They're the three poems: "Ode to a Cow Patty," "Old Daisy Needs a Milking," and "Sweet Milk, Sour Milk." The second and third citations of Bird on the works cited, you can use dash, dash, dash rather than typing in his entire name. I didn't show any examples in this works cited page, but you're occasionally going to use an article that's unsigned. Lots of times in encyclopedias or reference books or websites. You'll find some good material, but the author's name is not given. In those cases, you're going to list the work by the title of the work, the first important letter of the title, and that'll fit in the alphabetical order of the works cited list. We'll say more about works cited, and I'll refer you all to specific instances as I respond to your papers in the forum. But anyway, the main thing to remember about the in-text citation and the works cited list, there should be a one-to-one correspondence. Every source that is cited in the paper should be listed on the works cited page, and there should be no source listed on the works cited page that is not cited by name in the paper. If you have a random source or two on the works cited page, and I can't find that source cited inside the paper or in the text of the paper, then I'm wondering what in the world is going on. That must mean that you have some content in your essay that was not properly cited. And of course that technically is plagiarism, even though that might not have been the intent of your heart. We'll talk more about plagiarism perhaps in another conversation. But anyway, I hope this little look at the paper is going to help you. I hope this video explanation helps you to understand what you're looking at when you look at it. As you post in the forum, I'll be referring you to specific sections of the Pocket Style Manual where the mechanics and the techniques of this style are all explained and illustrated in addition to this sample paper. Okay, y'all got that? I'm sure you do. And I'll see you in the forum. Good luck as you read and write.